Avicii would take meetings in his helicopter on top of buildings in Hollywood, flying from, between his hotel and a live set somewhere nearby. So you'd go meet him in his helicopter on the rooftop of a building.
What's good, you guys? Welcome to the second episode of Behind the Scenes with Hriday. The guest joining me today is Mr. Adam Kagan. He's one of the most learned men I've come across. He's got the detailed knowledge of every audio gear and has some crazy knowledge about the business side of music. I'm really honored to have him on this podcast today to share some in-depth views on the hip-hop industry and the pop culture. I have been trained under him at MI last year and also have worked on a couple of projects with him. I'll be leaving down the links in the description, so please do not forget to check it out. Adam has over 2 decades of experience in the music industry as a producer, engineer, mixer, designer, contributing to more than 19 Grammy Nominated projects and also dozens of gold and platinum records with artists such as Lil Wayne, Kanye West, Swedish House Mafia, AVICII, and our very own Haran. So is that introduction alright, Adam? Am I missing out on something?
I don't know. That's good to me. People can see my credits online on the website or on your links.
So before starting this podcast, can you give us a quick run through of your career path?
So I went to school for music. I studied music. I studied electrical engineering and a little bit of architecture, and I was lucky enough to, right out of school, hook up with a songwriter and start working as a production team. And we were in Chicago at the time, and we moved out to LA quickly and got super lucky, and some artists that we were producing got record deals. So we were able to jump into the record company stream right away as producers. And so I was doing songwriting, production, engineering, and then also engineering and mixing for other producers. And it was at a time, this is around the 95, 96. So it was a kind of a revolutionary time where home studios were just coming into the computer era. So I kind of grew up with one foot in the analog, large console, analog tape world, and also the computer world. My first home studio in 1991 was Pro Tools. And I had an analog tape machine at the same time, but still was really excited about the digital stuff. It seemed normal to me. It wasn't new to me. It was right when I stepped out of school and started making records. That's what was there.
Right.
The early 2000s was when the producers were the guys who were actually programming the beats, maybe even writing the top lines. So, people like Dr. Dre were revolutionary in not only engineering their own stuff, but actually making their own beats and being really hands-on and owning their own studios. So I came in at a really fortunate time for that, right? So that was my kind of foot in the door in LA, was getting these established producers and songwriters to rely on me on a technical side, and also, as a mixer and engineer for them.
So in today's world, where do you think music is heading towards? And how do you think an artist can be successful today?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Where the world is going today, like fashion is always going to change, musical styles are always going to change. There's always going to be something new, and I'm at a point where I'm starting to have more perspective, where I see like sounds that were popular when I was in high school in the 80s are popular now, like with The Weeknd's new record. And so we're always kind of reinventing the same thing. So, I would say right now is an amazing time for the younger generation because of Tidal and Spotify and Apple Music. You can digest all this old music. Old music, the music I grew up on, which is considered old now. Like when I grew up and you wanted to learn a Beatles song, you bought the record and you spent 2 days like trying to figure out the chords on the record. Now you go on YouTube and you look up a song and look up the chord chart and it's there and somebody's showing you how to play it. So the learning curve is much faster.
Right.
So I would say develop your vision of a brand where you see yourself fitting into the world as a spokesperson for your own brand of stuff, right? Are you going to be like you have your channel of projects that you produce and develop that aren't necessarily songs that you're promoting as I wrote this, I produced this. This is a project for the world, and you're just the ambassador for that project, and that brings kind of a notoriety and legitimacy to your craft because you're presenting something to the world that's bigger than a pop song.
So what, according to you, is that one big thing that you still find missing in the music industry?
My vision is something like the way Amazon, the long tail theory of having an aggregator where instead of everybody going to one store to buy everything, now there's a company that provides access to 1 million stores. We need to develop that for music, and maybe it's SoundCloud, maybe it's Bandcamp, maybe it's something that hasn't come out yet, but I think there has to be a way for emerging artists and producers and engineers and creatives to present their wares in a marketplace. So the marketplace has to develop. That hasn't developed yet.
So my next question to you is about producing a song or an album. So basically, how do you get creative ideas while producing music? Like, I've noticed all the new songs that have come up that reach the Billboard have really simple arrangements, but like people connect with it really well. So I'm sure you've worked with a lot of pop artists and the upcoming artists. So what is their thinking and what is their mindset while producing a song?
I need inspiration from the artist. Like I when I first started, when I was in my 20s, I could write and produce 10 ideas a week of like, here's a cool track idea. And it was kind of like, you know, like the newest fashion designer, the newest makeup designer is always young, right? Because that's the new fashion, and the energy is coming from that group that's being revolutionary in some way. Now I want that inspiration. I need that to come from the artist. So I need to have an artist in mind, or sit with an artist, hear where they envision themselves, what inspired them, what background they have, and then I can take my background and synthesize, like, okay, what classic elements of music production does this artist remind me a little bit of Stevie Wonder? Can I steal some Stevie Wonder elements and put it into this EDM artist and find a new way to use those ideas in this? And it's all about fusing those. You know, nothing is really new except the fusion. So there's a lot of new ways to present an artist. I still think an artist has to have that charisma that when they walk in a room, people are interested in them. If you don't have that, you could be like a bedroom EDM producer and create cool headphone beats and people are going to be interested in your music. But if you want to be the artist who's the next, you know, AVICII or the next Usher or the next Post Malone, it's charisma that really brings that out. And it doesn't matter if Post Malone was an actor or a singer, he would still get the same amount of attention because he has that charisma that diffuses from him that people just react to. And you have to be sensitive to that and go, now, how does music fit into your personality?
So what, according to you, would be the new pop music, like the new popular music that reaches the Billboard?
Everything works right now. You can do new metal, you can do EDM, you can do hip hop, you can do trap, you can do pop rock, you can do super pop, you can do throwback pop, and it all works. There's an audience for it. So there's not like a pigeonhole where, okay, this year only mainstream rock is working. Like in the 90s, it was kind of like there were cliques. There was a hip hop clique, there was a top 40 radio clique, there was a super pop music clique. Now it's just pop music is pop music.
So basically whatever hits the Billboard is termed as pop, right?
Yeah. And the audience, you know, the audience is a global audience. So I think artists who tour have a huge advantage. Because if you're on tour, you see what's coming up in other countries and you can sense what your audience is moving towards. And then that energy comes from the artist, and I can look at what they're contributing and they're going like, these tempos are coming up, these kind of sounds are coming up, this is the club experience. You know, when I grew up, the bands that really excited me, the live bands, were the bands that were great at doing live shows, where their songs had a breakdown for a bridge, right? And their songs had a huge out chorus and new melodies came in every chorus. And when you saw them live, like every 8 bars was a new exciting moment. And then when hip hop came out and music in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was very linear. because it wasn't about a live performance. It was about listening in your car. It was Jeep music, right? And now it got back to EDM live music where the DJs were kind of building the tempos and building the transitions, and there were drops and there's cool moments in EDM songs.
Can you share that one experience that touched you while you were producing an artist?
Wow. I'll give you the good examples. I don't want to give you bad examples. We've all heard about, like, you know, somebody throwing a chair in a room or something like that, but that's not, you don't want to hear my story about somebody shooting a gun at a speaker in a studio session. But I did a record with, I don't even know if you're familiar with Aaron Neville, but he was, you know, had a lot of big songs from the 60s all the way until now, classic kind of R&B soul artist. And I did a record with him where my partner and I were producing and writing songs for him, and we brought a songwriter from New York, and the songwriter had a bunch of hit records. His name was Gordon Chambers, and he basically asked Aaron, the artist, what do you want to say? And Aaron said, oh man, I have a book of poetry I've been writing since I was like 6 years old, and I would love to use some of these poems, right? And some of the poems were poems that he wrote in Catholic school when he was in like 5th grade. And Gordon was able to take those poems and create lyrics out of those. And to be able to just sit at a piano and play some kind of chord progression and have Aaron read his poetry as a song was a pretty special moment. You know, it's cool also to go in a studio and have somebody like, you know, like Nas or Migos or somebody just spit 8 bars and go like, wow, that was a great idea. Like, I love what you were able to say in 10 words. But to watch somebody who had a lifetime of experiences, I mean, Aaron Neville had been in jail for shooting somebody. He had worked in oil fields. He'd been screwed over by the record companies. He'd had success. He'd been married for 50 years. He had 20 kids. He was kind of a staple in his community. Like his lifetime experiences were huge. And to be able to see him writing these songs, like literally sitting in my living room, like on a couch, writing lyrics and discussing them with another songwriter, that's kind of what we hope music production and music development is about. It's not about me putting headphones on with my drum machine and putting together a fat beat and then somebody in another state writes a lyric to it and emails it to me. Like, that's cool, but that's not the artistic experience that we all look for.
So which studio are you currently working with, and what are some artists that come through, and, you know, can you give us an insight of the workflow that they have?
I mean, I work at Chalice Recording Studios in Hollywood, and I do kind of technical direction there now. So I'm not involved in necessarily the day-to-day sessions that go from 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. But we've had artists like Rihanna and Migos and Kanye and all these artists come through, and they do bring in 10 or 12 people who are all collaborating and throwing ideas together. And an artist like Rihanna has a machine that's big enough to book 5 studios in the same facility and have 5 writing teams, each working in their own room, and walk from room to room and go, what are we working on? And talk about what she wants, what kind of messages she wants, and what kind of tempo she wants. And obviously that's kind of more manufactured music because it's more about the current style and fashion rather than I want to tell my life stories. But there is some of that in there too. And artists like Beyonce have the success and money and have the overview to put together an album like Lemonade, where they can put together a poet and a sound designer and some beat makers and a rock producer and an R&B producer, and have enough strength as an artist and vision to put together a cohesive record that tells a story over 10 songs. That's powerful, right? So there are those kind of things still go on, and they're never going to go away. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of time and money to do that. So it's easy for all of us to sit at home and go boop, 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 and put together a cool EDM track. But that's not, to me, that's not my favorite artistic experience. It's a interesting way to do things, and I like that. I work on tons of EDM and hip hop and trap and straight bubblegum pop stuff. But the stuff that really makes me feel good is when I can connect with an artist and a songwriter and some musicians live in a room and record string section on a pop song or a horn section on a pop song and see the energy that everybody gives back. That's a different experience.
Whoa, that's incredible, man. So basically, I read about this. So Billie Eilish and her brother produced and engineered an entire album in her bedroom, and they swept 5 Grammys out of it. So what do you think is the future of commercial studios? Will they run out of business?
My saying that I've been saying for years is you have your whole lifetime to make your first record. And nobody knows how you get there, right? And then you emerge as a breakout artist. Like Billie Eilish, her record, it doesn't, like sonically, it's not impressive. It's not like a great vocal sound. It's not a great drum sound, but it's a great piece of work, right? It's an amazing, interesting, compelling new take on the way she tells a story and her vocal production, her sound effects. It's all a thing, right? And that was what made her emerge like that. Can she do that every record? No, because that took who knows how long, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years in the making, 2 years, we don't know. But her brother, is becoming a sought after producer now. And I see him working around studios in LA and traveling around the world, meeting with artists. And at that point, he is, since he's staying in a hotel room in LA working with 10 different artists over a month, he is booking the big studios where they can bring in executives and have a catered lunch and have 10 parking spaces. And to me, that's what the big studios are about. They're about having a facility where a bunch of people can get together. They have a restroom with 15 people can go in the restroom at the same time. They've got parking spaces for everybody. They've got someone to take food orders and coffee orders. It's about service at that point.
So basically, it's like a 5-star hotel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And that's the music studios are not about the gear anymore as much as the service that they're providing, the facility and the space.
So let's say a 25-year-old wants to start his own commercial studio in today's world. So what are the different things he has to keep in mind, and also how can he attract more clients?
What attracts clients is comfort and reliability. So I would say, in the last 8 or 10 years, most of the artists that I work with in major studios, most of the producers bring their own equipment. They bring their own laptop, they bring their own interface, some of them bring their own microphones. But a studio has to have at least a few good microphones, some good mic preamps and compressors, and great monitoring.
True.
But what really brings people back is comfort and consistency. So make sure it's believe it or not, make sure it's in a neighborhood that people like to spend time in. You don't want to be too far away from the general commotion. I think being in LA, being in Hollywood is better than being 20 miles away, because nobody wants to spend an hour getting to the studio every day. You want to be close to the hotels, close to the good food, close to, the clubs, places that people want to go. And if somebody wants to go to a club for an hour and come back, they shouldn't have to drive an hour to get there. Right? And having parking available for people is super important. I mean, these are dumb things, but that's really what people like. I mean, today's a little different because people can take an Uber to get somewhere, but parking spaces, and especially gated parking, we get, superstar artists who want privacy. And they want to make sure that when they pull into the studio, there's not a photographer standing on the sidewalk taking their picture getting out of the car. So at Chalice Studios, we have gates that are blacked out, 6 feet high. And when you pull in and the gate closes, the rest of the world can't see you. There's canopies over the doorways. We've actually done for certain artists, tent the whole parking lot. So when the artist pulls into the parking lot, them and their whole entourage are covered, and even a helicopter can't get pictures of them. And that's extreme, but if you're an artist like Lady Gaga, you have that budget. And if the studio says it's $5,000 extra for this week for us to tent the parking lot, that's their food budget for a day. They don't care. Right? Or having the ability to... I spoke to somebody who did event coordination, production coordination for Lady Gaga, and she would, if she wanted to use one studio in a building, she would book out the whole building so that nobody else was there. And again, it's about just blocking out the rest of the world. Even producers and engineers are fans, and if producers walking down the hall and sees an artist they want to work with, they're going to chat them up and try to get them to talk to them. And Gaga doesn't want to do that. If she has 8 hours to work on a song, she needs that 8 hours to be only focused on, whatever task she's trying to accomplish.
So Adam, I remember talking with you about your experience of AVICII. So can you give us a short insight about how was it and like what actually happened?
I mean, AVICII, grew into a crazy superstar of an artist. Having your own airplanes and helicopters and that kind of thing. And a friend of mine who used to be general manager at Tommy Boy left to go work with AVICII and manage him. And I'd been working with Tommy Boy on several records over the years. And AVICII would take meetings in his helicopter on top of buildings in Hollywood, flying from, between his hotel and a live set somewhere nearby. So you'd go meet him in his helicopter on the rooftop of a building. Like, that was pretty exciting for anybody, regardless of your stature.
Wow, that was incredible. Hey Adam, thanks a lot for your time and your incredible experiences that you shared with us. It really means a lot, and I hope it's benefited all the listeners. And yeah, I hope to see you soon in LA.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot, guys, for checking this entire podcast out. If you really like this podcast, please do not forget to share it with your friends and also hit the subscribe button for the new videos. Thank you.